Everyone wants more money, but most of us weren't taught how to create an abundant life. That's where the More Money Show comes in. If you're ready to have more money, create more freedom, and experience more fun, turn the volume up. It's time to learn how to create the prosperity and life you have been dreaming of. Here's your host, Cassie Parks.
Hello and welcome to this episode of More Money. I am your host, Cassie Parks, and today I have Maggie McReynolds with me. So excited to do her second interview in the Year of Growth series, and she has an amazing total update for you all to hear about Manifest 10K. So welcome, Maggie.
Thank you.
I'm excited to talk to you today. I'm always excited to talk to you.
I'm always pretty excited to talk to you. So that's a fun coincidence.
It is fun. So tell me what is awesome right now.
Oh, what is awesome is that I'm only 6 weeks into my second go round on Manifest 10K, which I believe is a 90-day program, right?
It is,
Yeah.
Yes.
So at 6 weeks, manifested, and I wrote it down because it's a big figure and I want to get it right. In 6 weeks, I have manifested $34,625.98.
I love it.
If that's true in 6 weeks, I can't wait to see what's true at the end of 90 days.
I know, right? I'm super excited, including what I love about this story even more is that like you sent me a total this morning and then you updated the total right before we got on the call. You're like, oh yeah, and then more money came in this morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. How does it feel? How do you feel?
Euphoric, but also, and maybe even more importantly, I feel like, of course that's true.
Awesome.
Like, why wouldn't that be true?
Right. I love that.
So I'm at a point where consistently I'm not on my computer, I'm not actively selling, I'm not doing anything. I'm just getting notifications from PayPal and my bank account that, oh, I've received a payment. Oh, somebody else has signed up. Oh, I've received another payment. So I don't even perceive that it's effort. It isn't effortful at all. I'm just living my life and attracting big money in the process. So
I love that.
That's pretty cool.
That is very cool, especially because it was only about a month so you've been in the Enchanted Circle for 6 weeks. It was a little over a month ago where we had a conversation and it went something like, I'm like, why are you posting like that? You're like, because I got to attract people, right? I got to attract things,
Right.
money. Yeah. And it's so far away at this moment.
I was just realizing, and this isn't a good thing or a bad thing, it's just what is, that I don't think I've put a Facebook post up in weeks that was like a solicitation for a project or a program or anything. I mean, I don't actively have huge, big offers out there. And yet, the money keeps rolling in.
Keeps coming in. I love it. So how does it feel to be that person? Like, especially since it was just so recent that you were somebody a little bit different.
Well, it is really recent that I was somebody different. And yet my experience is that this has always been true. This has always been who I am. Mm-hmm. And that the part of me that wasn't this person was like out of alignment. Like, I don't know who that person was, but that was silly. that was just silly.
Yeah. Just to help people listening, but it didn't feel silly. Like there was no realization that it was silly, right?
No. When I was deep in it, when I was deep in like fear and past present self thinking, it felt all really real and very urgent and kind of desperate and pretty panicky. And no, I was very much present with that. That was my reality. Yeah. So it's not like even at the time I was going, oh, this is just a silly story. And as soon as I put that down, I'll manifest money. I didn't feel it was a story. It felt real.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when, I don't know, just because it doesn't feel like a story when we're in it until we're willing to pull it apart and look at it, right?
Right. So all I knew at that time, and I'm really proud of this part, when I first went through Manifest 10K and manifested 20,000, which I know
Yes.
you've posted about and we've talked about, and I thought I was all that in a bag of chips. But this time, the only real thought I had was, I want to do more than that. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what more. I didn't have a dollar figure attached to more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I'll knock that out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was feeling kind of panicky, I still sort of had a sense that somehow that might turn out to be true. So like
Yeah.
little tendril of hope.
Right. Like I can do that. Like it,
Yeah.
yeah, which I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What I also love is that you, even though that was your intention, like you followed the program,
Mm.
which makes a big difference, right?
Oh, absolutely. So, I'm pretty smart, and I'm a coach, and I know stuff. I know stuff I've learned for myself, and I know stuff you've already taught me. And yet, we humans are funny, and we forget, and we get caught up in story to the point where we don't even realize it's a story anymore, and it feels really real. And I definitely knew I needed support and to go through all the prompts and practice again,
Mm-hmm.
because I had fallen away from daily manifestation practices.
Yeah.
I really had. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was very one of the ways you get deep into a financial story of there's lack and it's scary, at least for me, as I stopped doing anything to maintain abundance or to maintain manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
So, you gotta work the program so that the program works.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. And I
I
love
say
that.
work, but it doesn't feel like, I'm digging ditches over here.
Right.
It's fun.
It is, yeah, it is fun most of the time. And I think we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it is, you have to show up and do the work, right? Like
Mhm.
you have to do it. And what I love, I love that you said that, share that whole bit. That was awesome. And what I love, what I was meaning to say as well is that you didn't go in, like you just allocated the 10,000, like was your assignment. Even
Mhm.
though your intention was more, like I loved that because you do every assignment as it's supposed to be done. It's awesome.
Well, I see no reason to reinvent your wheel. Like, clearly, it's worked for me before. It's worked for
Yes.
others. I'm like, why in the world would I go off and go, I'm going to do my own thing?
Because our human brains do weird things sometimes.
Well, there is sometimes a tendency to go, okay, got it. Now I can make that. I'll do it differently. It's like, why? I mean, you and I have, and the conversations I've had with you, the coaching I've received from you, and the prompts and the responses that you give in Kajabi are invaluable. Because even if I think I'm doing really well and I'm doing it, quote unquote, right, I even within the program, I get lost and I fall off track and I say something weird or I get into some weird story. And you're awesome about kind of hooking me by the collar and going, hey, wait a minute. Hey, wait a minute. I think you're lost in a story.
Which is good and brings me to this question. So what
Yeah.
do you think is the biggest difference doing Manifest 10K a second time?
Well, probably the biggest difference is that I absolutely know through and through that it works because it did the first time. So, it's not even really an if for me. It's just how, wow, it'll be interesting to see how.
Yes.
And then there's that little bit of, and how much?
Right?
Because I'm playing
So
it,
much
I'm
more
kind of
fun.
making it, yeah, I'm kind of making it a game with myself of like, ooh, can I beat my previous record? And I have. So now I'm like, how much can I beat my previous record by?
Right? Which I love, and I love how you're playing the game. And if you noticed, Maggie had it down to the cent of how much she manifested, which
I
is
did.
part of playing that game. And it's part of opening to bigger. It's like, it's counting it because that builds momentum, right? It means everything counts.
Right. So this total includes everything from a $9,000 contract to I got 40 cents off a muffin. I mean, you know, seriously,
Yes.
in this list is saving 40
Yay.
cents on a muffin.
I love it. But that's what matters, right? Because, I always say this, like when you get close, because the person who like, you want to count it all, especially because you're like, well, how big can it get? Right.
Mhm.
I say this with people that I've watched do it and like get close to 10,000. They're like, I'm there. I'm going back through my receipts. I know somebody bought me a lunch, or I'm going back through my calendar. Right. Because
Mhm.
you count it all. That's just part of being that person. So I love that.
Right. Well, and as you have said many times yourself, I'm not going to devalue the 40-cent savings on a muffin.
Right.
I mean, that's just basically saying to the universe, I want abundance. No, wait, not like that.
Right.
I mean,
No.
I don't have rules about what it has to look like. That's not my job.
Yes. I love that. I
Yeah.
love the way you own that part too. So tell me, how has your business shifted and grown as a result of the last 6 weeks being in the Enchanted Circle?
That's a really interesting question. I'm really glad you asked. So I already know that how manifestation works is best, at least, is I kind of set a kind of loose outcome,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just get out of the way. It's like how that happens is just, I can't help the universe. I can only get in the way. So I'm just like, you know what? Just totally up to you.
That, right?
I think of the universe as like, hey, dude, however that's going to come. And by the same token, all businesses need to have a vision,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't just have an end goal. I was all messed up in how it had to work.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to look like this, and it was going to be X number of people who signed up in this way for this specific thing. And I find that much like manifestation, it has worked out much better if I just kind of put my outcome and my vision for what I want to do in the world out there to the universe. And then I really let go of and it has to look like 14 people call me between this date and this date, and they pay me this specific amount of money for this exact program I designed. And, when I'm getting pings that people have paid me or signed up for something, I got hired to write a humorous speech. I'm somebody's funny speechwriter. What? I mean, do I do that? Well, I guess I do. Now, I didn't set out to become somebody's funny speechwriter. And if somebody had said to me, bet you're going to make some extra money doing that, I would have been like, okay. I have a background as a professional comedy writer, which is how I got the gig, but I didn't apply for it. I didn't ask for it. And the person who called me didn't know that's what she would be hiring me to do. Mm-hmm. She called me for something else. And then as we started talking, I just mentioned, she's kind of funny. I mentioned I'd done a lot of radio comedy writing and sketch writing years ago. And she was like, oh, well, that's so interesting because I need X and Y and Z. And now I'm somebody's speechwriter. So there's a great example of that would never have been in any business model or business plan.
Right. I love that.
And yet, here it is.
Here it is. And it tied into something that showed up in your future self workshop. I think we've talked about that, but I just realized oh yeah, like speeches and speaking and supporting in that way showed up in this very little thread. Not little, as big, but just sort of wound its way in there. Like, oh, that's cool.
Well, I was like, well, wait a minute. If I'm standing for women owning their story and writing about it, why wouldn't I also support and offer different ways to own that story and speak it? Or, why wouldn't I do that? Of course I would do that. Yeah. So, but it wasn't something that was present for me when creating a business plan.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So the universe turns out to be an awesome partner in making up business plans on the fly.
Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
Just to get out of the way. I love it. Yeah. Will you tell us just a little bit about experience or ahas in the Double Your Business Workshop?
Yeah, I will. So I'd heard Cassie talk a lot about scripting, and I sort of had a loose idea. Like I understood, I should write in the past tense. And I understood some big picture stuff about it, but I couldn't figure out why she would hold a whole workshop about it. Because I was really like, what is there to get about this? I mean, really? We're going to talk for 3 days about this? And the truth is, Cassie promotes a very specific way of scripting that is phenomenally crazy effective. And I had no idea what I was talking about. I mean, yes, did I have a loose idea of what it was like? Sure. But I mean, you guys, I have been writing since I was a child. I'm a pretty good writer. And as a result, I'm sort of like, it's writing. I can do that in my sleep. And yet, so the first time writing in a Google document with Cassie kind of watching virtually and commenting, and she's like, what are you doing? And like, I'm writing this thing. And she's like, well, here's why that's not going to get you what you want. And I'm like, oh. so I learned so much in that time. And what I thought was, I'll be honest, it could be a waste of time. Like, I know this stuff. I'm a writer. I don't need to do this. Turned out to be amazingly productive and fun and effective.
Yeah.
Just in the days since I did that workshop, was it just last weekend?
Yeah.
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 Wow.
I know.
So I've gotten like 3 clients. I've gotten this crazy speech writing gig. All of this stuff has just, and this is during a week when I've been otherwise engaged and not working my business.
Mm-hmm.
And people are just showing up. And one of the things, I've got it on a sticky somewhere around here. I said to Cassie, and she was like, remember that? I said, people just show up just to give me money.
Yes.
And you know what? It's become true.
Mm-hmm.
People show up just to give me money.
Yeah.
And I really credit the workshop with that.
Yeah.
I do. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So it took what I already knew to a whole new level.
Yeah.
And this from somebody who's been a coach for a lot of years, who's a really skilled writer, who's pretty decent manifestor. And I thought I knew it all. And I swear to God, if I didn't know it all, y'all don't know it all. You know.
I love that. I love it. Yeah. And, Maggie's the person who edited Double Your Business. So if there's anyone who
who should have known it all.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about that. What I also love is, this is a perfect example, and I like to point these out when they organically come up, is people show up to give me money. Like that's a mantra. It's a sticky note. It's all the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it came straight from your future self. And so I'll often tell people, like, I don't love just picking out, any old saying, any old mantra of something I think I want. I always love the ones. And that's why that's so juicy. And it totally did. Your future self said that, like, and I'm like, oh, yep,
Right.
let's put that down.
Like I started out with, I am a powerful money magnet, which doesn't feel bad. It just feels generic.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, that sounds like a really good abundance affirmation.
It does. Yeah.
I probably read it somewhere.
Yeah.
Or somebody suggested it. And I've been wearing my mala beads and like chanting it and, writing it. And I've been doing my do with it. And it has not been not powerful. But once I hooked into people show up just to give me money, it was like crazy,
Yeah.
So I think you're right. It came from me. It came from my future self. And so it just inherently is going to have more power than anything I read in a book and went, oh, okay, I'll use that.
Right. Let me try that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you shared this story. So I even want to say, I'm guessing you don't even put as much energy, right? Because it just is like, you're not doing.
I'm not doing mala beads with it.
Yeah.
No. I have it written down in a few places around my house so that I see it.
Right. And
I don't like chant it out loud or like, make some weird little dance that goes with it. Or, I don't have it on cross stitch on a pillow. I don't have to.
Yes.
Because it came from here and it just is. So I don't have to keep saying it over again. It would be like running around going, I have blue eyes. I have blue eyes. Did you notice? I have blue eyes. I mean, I don't need to keep affirming, actually I have blue-green eyes, but I don't need to keep affirming the color of my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't necessarily have to put a ton of energy into people show up just to give me money because it just is.
Yeah, it is. And it's such a great example of what I say all the time. It's not, we don't when it's right and when it's hooked into your future self and what that is, it's exactly what you said. Like, you don't have to say it 1,000 times a day because it just
Right.
is. Yeah.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, because I think it's important to share this too. Like, everything is awesome today. And yet it was only 5 days ago, like we got on our one-on-one call because Maggie does one-on-one coaching with me as well, and said, yeah, I didn't really want to show up today. And I said, that's awesome. I'm so glad you did. It's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
There were,
go ahead.
sorry. Oh. There were 2 or 3 different points the night before and during the day where I was like, I just don't want to, I don't want to talk to Cassie. I just want to cancel. I should just reschedule. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not, no, I don't want to talk to her. And I mean, I adore Cassie. It's not like I'm hiding from Cassie, but I just had all the no about, I was like, yeah, no, I want to do this. And I'm so grateful I showed up because, and this is probably why I thought I didn't want to talk to her. I had drifted, kind of like drifted out of the lane and was out of alignment with my future self in a couple of like key areas. And I didn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only had I drifted out of my lane, but, I was driving with my eyes closed, apparently. And I really didn't know. I mean, I thought things were kind of thinging along. And Cassie, in just 10 minutes, was able to go, well, what about this? Well, okay, that's interesting. What about that? And I was like, oh. So there were these big aha moments that I was just on the cusp of figuring out with Cassie's help. And I really think when we get this, I don't want to. I think there's a part of us that knows we're right there. We're right there. And it's scary.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, and it's all the old stories and the old chatter comes up and goes, it's scary, run away, And I'm really glad I didn't listen to that part of me that was like, run away. And I'm so grateful that, I don't think I didn't even ask Cassie. It wasn't like I said, I'm having these problems and I need your coaching on this and that. She simply said, what's going on? And I told her like 2 or 3 things that's going on. And she was kind of like, huh, let's try those differently. And I was like, whoa, okay. And it made a huge difference, not just that day, but in the days since I leveled up because I showed up and because Cassie showed up for me.
Yeah.
And so, lesson learned, the times when I don't want to show up are when it's super more important that I do. Because something's up, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wanting to hide from it.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story so real, because that's exactly it. Like, when we're like, I don't want to. Yeah, no, all of those, you're exactly right. Like, that's why I get excited when I'm like, cool, you showed up anyway. Like, this is going to be awesome, because you're right. It's that verge of, if I show up, I'm going forward, and it's like, it really is like a choice that happens, because when you show up, it's like, okay, I'm going full on into that. And so thank you for sharing that, because I think that's important for people to hear.
It reminds me of, and not the same thing. And I'm not a weight loss coach or advocating weight loss, but I know from previous periods of and I think almost all women and probably most men can relate to, you're trying to lose weight and it's going pretty well. And then you hit this plateau and it just feels like you're there and nothing is ever going to happen ever again. Mm-hmm. And that's when you start getting tempted to so I can go ahead and have the burrito, I guess, because nothing's happening. But for those of us who have been through that journey, the plateaus are often when your body's like crazy ready to get down to a new level. And right. So it reminds me of that, what feels like stuck, what feels like a plateau, what feels like I'm losing enthusiasm, what feels like fear is usually that pause right before you level up to a whole new place.
Yes.
And if I hadn't forced myself to show up, and one of the reasons I did is I just love talking to Cassie, and if she hadn't been there to show up for me so wholeheartedly and been so insightful to go, these things, you might want to look at these things, I would have stayed stuck and perhaps, not just drifted out of my lane, but gone, I'm just taking this exit. I'm done with this. I'm done with this drive now. I'm so glad I didn't.
Me too. I'm
Yeah.
so glad you didn't. And the days after have been amazing. And yeah, it's just like, I always say it, but I love when there's a real example and someone else also willing to share, it's showing up. You just got to keep showing up, because it is those are the moments that make the difference, right? It's all fun and exciting in the beginning, but it's when you show up when it's not fun that it's usually really amazing.
Well, if you can imagine the universe tuning in and watching and going, what do you want here? If you're wandering around in your lane and pulling over to the side of the road and going, it's hard. It's a pretty mixed signal.
Right? Yeah.
I can't tell where you're trying to go. You've pulled off the road. And what do you want here? I'm clueless. Yeah. Okay. I guess we're taking a break now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you
get you where you want to go, but you got to stay in the car.
Yeah. You got to keep driving, right? Yeah. Yeah, especially when you open up something, that's as big as what we do in the workshop, which is basically, driving across country. Okay, you want to get from New York to LA? You have to keep driving.
Right. A lot of people use a GPS as a metaphor for the universe. And, your GPS can indeed get you from New York to LA, but it can't do it if you're I'm just going to kind of hang out here in Madison.
Right.
I'm just going to wait here by the side of the road and see what happens.
Yeah. I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love also how it's so magical. I had all these questions and you just wove them all in without a lot of them even asking. So that's super fun and in alignment and so good. So what I want to talk about now as we wrap up is what are you excited about? What's coming, or what you can see coming, or just in general?
What I can see coming, speaking of road trips, is I can see taking my little act, and by that I mean what I'm about in the world, my coaching, my editing stuff, the speech writing retreats. I'm really getting excited about the idea of taking my little act on the road.
Love it.
I want to know, and I don't know yet, where am I going next? I'm pretty sure it's someplace super fun, and I'm pretty sure that an ocean might be involved. So,
I love that.
I grew up on the shore of not an ocean, but Lake Michigan, which is the largest body of water we have that isn't an ocean. And I'm a Scorpio, so I'm a water baby. So, yeah. I love Colorado, but there is nowhere near enough water here. So yeah, I want to lay my eyes on some big water and do some big work while I do it.
I love it. So much fun. Any final thoughts as we wrap up today?
I missed what you just said because you broke up a little bit. Sorry.
Any final thoughts about as we wrap up today?
It's kind of a repeat of what I already said, but for anybody out there who's unsure or pretty sure that you've got this by yourself, don't even just leap in. Don't come on in. The water is fine.
It is. And that's a great time. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. If you're hearing the call, the whisper, the poll to join the Enchanted Circle, just go to CassieParks.com and click on Enchanted Circle, because it's an awesome, fun, magical place to be. Yeah. So thank you, Maggie, for sharing your story today. All of it, even the scary parts. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I know the listeners of More Money do as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you to all of our listeners who are here today. Make sure to catch Maggie's next interview in the Year of Growth series, as well as the next interview next week. Thanks, Maggie.
Thank you, Cassie.
Thanks for joining us on The More Money Show. To learn how to attract more money into your life, go to your favorite book retailer and order Cassie's book, Manifest $10,000.